I did.
Good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, August 19th, and this is Queer News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It is time to queer up the news.
So watch as we bring you these and other stories from the LGBTQ headlines. Tomorrow night, we bring you part 3 of a special interview with Trump ally Roger Stone, which will air at the end of our show tomorrow. So be sure to stick around for that and an update to our interview after the intel report came out about Russia.
A man hurls homophobic slurs, then exposes himself after being asked to wear a mask. And Queensland becomes the first Australian state to ban conversion therapy.
Tonight, Wednesday at 8 p.m., It's Happening Out talks about Kamala Harris and her out lesbian chief of staff. And this Thursday at 8 p.m., I will host Gay Town Hall, a discussion of the biggest LGBT topics of the week of interest, with the largest collection of diversity of hosts ever gathered. So good evening again, America. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, August 19th, 2020, and it is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. We are live as an unedited news show, so anything that these two do, you're going to see. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my cohort anchor, Aaron Darr, and my cohort anchor, Misty Eyes. I almost said a different word that was going to be a little worse.
Oh, no.
Let's queer up the news. Tonight we bring you queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of queer news for today, Wednesday, August 19th, 2020.
So we're going to go ahead and talk about election 2020, vote 2020, and my experience after I was called a faggot at a primary voting location in Florida. August 18, 2020, a day history was made in Florida. Last night, Florida nearly elected an LGBT person who will be on his way to the state Senate after his November general election. A current member of the House of Representatives, Chevron Jones, an African-American and openly homosexual man, has made history after defeating one of the most anti-gay Democrats in the Florida state legislature in a Democratic primary. Senate District 35, a safe seat for Florida Democrats, Jones will make history for all of us this November. His Senate district encompasses both Broward and Miami-Dade counties. Last night was also a great night for the LGBTQ community in Tampa Bay. Winning the Democratic primary for House District 70, Michelle Ratner, an African-American and out lesbian, also won her Democratic primary, which is also a safe seat for Florida Democrats. She will become the first African-American lesbian elected to a state office after her general election this November. From Tampa Bay to Broward County, you know, Broward County, South Florida, where all the magic happens here in presidential politics. What do the sheriff, the state attorney, the public defender, and the supervisor of elections all have in common after last night? Well, the Democratic primaries of all the previously mentioned offices were won by, wait for it, they were won by all black men. This is so significant, being that Democrats have put an African-American woman on the presidential ticket as vice president. Is this a sign of things to come, one has to ask? With chants of Black Lives Matter and race riots instigated by the Trump administration and leaders like Mitch McConnell, black voters are energized and they are turning out. Turnout nearly doubled here in Broward County what it was 2 and 4 years ago. And Broward County has thus made history. A stronghold for Florida Democrats, a supermajority of offices in Broward County are always held by Democrats. Thus, the election of the men to the previously mentioned offices is again so significant. So, how was this done? Newsflash, vote by mail. Vote by mail. Nearly 75% of the vote was vote by mail, right here in Broward County in South Florida. Access to the ballot box and vote by mail are one of the most precious rights and opportunities we have as Americans, especially for those whose rights and civil liberties are constantly up for debate. Rights and civil liberties of individuals like the Black and Hispanic community and members of the LGBTQ community too. Yes, vote by mail. The same vote by mail that Donald Trump participates in. And you know what? If vote by mail is good enough for Donald Trump, then it is good enough for the rest of America. This is my observation. African Americans, in particular black women, the LGBTQ community, and Democrats are fired up here in Florida. And I believe we will see turnout in this November's election like we have never seen before all across America. Black Americans and LGBTQ Americans will be doing their part to ensure that Donald Trump is a one-term president. My own personal experience as someone who worked a precinct as a poll worker yesterday was this. Even in a city, which is Davie, Florida, which has one of the highest numbers of registration of Republicans in all of Broward County, my precinct was met with countless black women voting. And they were young black women. And they were voting. The same black women taking back their vote, making their voices heard. But it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops. A number of voters wearing their, but what else, Make America Great Again t-shirts, their baseball caps, and to my surprise, their face masks yelled their usual Trump obscenities. One woman in her Trump shirt even went as far as arguing with a poll clerk over the fact that she received a ballot in which President Donald Trump was not on. Yes, that's right. She thought she was going to come to this precinct yesterday and vote for Donald Trump on August 18th, 2020. This is what we are up against, folks. My LGBT family and friends and our allies, this is what we are up against. So please, vote. Vote early and vote in person. And if you're enrolled in vote by mail, fill out your damn ballot and personally drop it off at your Board of Elections office. USPS and mailing your ballot, which many Republicans, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, and those serving our country abroad do. They vote by mail, and that vote by mail is under attack. Vote by mail and the use of USPS is no longer safe because Donald Trump, Senate Republicans, House Republicans, and Republicans all throughout Washington have chose to politicize access to the ballot box and the mail service here in America because they know they are going to lose. They are going to lose, and they are going to lose huge. They are going to lose bigly. And because they are going to lose, well, they're going to do everything that they can to try to win.
Well, it's an interesting observation on the primaries yesterday.
Yeah.
I was keenly interested. You were a paid poll worker yesterday, and you were watching the Trump supporters that were coming in, many agitated, I understand, that I read in yours and other individuals' summary, because they were in the wrong polling location. And because they were directed to the correct poll, they thought in some way
they were being disenfranchised.
Yes, their vote was being turned away. And I understand that one of the prospective voters that showed up that was in that situation actually turned while you were working the poll and called you a faggot.
Yeah.
Give me the context of that.
You know, when you live somewhere and you're registered to vote, you have a precinct, so you have a home to exercise that vote. And this gentleman had told me that he was turned away not once, not twice, but 3 different times, and that he was brought to my precinct and that he was going to vote there. I took his ID, scanned it in, and it said that he wasn't at his precinct. His precinct, literally, I Googled it. It was 5 or 6 minutes away. It was right down the road. So it wasn't that much of an inconvenience for him to do so. So I gave him that, and he then took his ID and the receipt, and he said, again, this is the 3rd time that I have been turned away by you commie, liberal, Democrat, communists. And you're going to sit here and you're going to bitch and complain about the U.S. Postal Service and Donald Trump trying to take away vote by mail? And I said, sir, and he's raising his voice at this point, of course, already. And I'm nonpartisan, so I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I am an impassioned American. So I'm engaging with him, and I'm telling him, sir, I said, that's not my intention. I said, I'll have you know, even though it says on your ballot, that your voter pass, that you are Republican, there are Democrats that I've turned away too, and that you are not being turned away because you're a Republican. So then he leaves, and he screams Trump, and he says, fucking faggot, as he's going out the door. And, that, my friends, that is Trump's America.
I have a question for you, Aaron. Yesterday at the polls, you were there. How was the PPE? How were people reacting with coronavirus and dealing with those situations?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I did my training to be a poll worker for the Broward County Supervisor of Elections. We were told, as our viewers are seeing now, as our viewers are seeing now.
You could have gotten into a plastic bubble, I guess.
I could have, right? But I didn't. So we were told that when we were training that regardless if someone is or is not wearing a face mask, that once they enter a precinct, that we are not allowed to turn them away to vote simply because they're not wearing a face mask. I'll tell you, out of the 266 people that voted in my precinct at the Boys and Girls Club in Davie, Florida yesterday, every single person was wearing a face mask. In terms of employees for the Supervisor of Elections office, all of us were constantly washing our hands with hand sanitizer because we're dealing with people's photo identification. We were wearing the face mask that you saw as well as the shield.
One last question. So you had this reaction working the poll yesterday, and it's kind of an indication of what we're going to watch on November 3rd. How did you feel when you felt this aggression in terms of what was coming from these voters, of feeling like they weren't going to get their Trump voice in, and even to the point of calling you a faggot because you were giving the right instruction? How did you feel about that?
Well, I've been called a faggot since I was 4 years old, so this is nothing new to me, and it doesn't hurt my feelings. At the end of the day, I worry for the people that it does affect them in the way that it doesn't affect me. But it was very foretelling because his reaction and the reactions of other Trump supporters at my precinct yesterday, I'm sure all across the state of Florida, the paranoia that they have, they, just like President Trump, Roger Stone, and the other thugs of the Trump administration and supporters of the Trump administration know that they're going to lose. And that's what this is all about.
Well, while I agree with the conclusion of your observation, what does really surprise me is you don't expect to go into a polling location to exercise your right to vote and anyone be bullied in the way of calling poll workers, using racial slurs or misogynistic terms or homophobic observations. Quite shocking. Let's continue in queering up Vote 2020 by reporting that today, Stone, Trump, and yesterday's Republican Intel Committee releases a 1,000-page Russian interference report. And remember, we've just completed the Al Ferguson interview with Roger Stone. Watch this.
Witness, how devastating is this report for Donald Trump and the administration?
If people read it, it is devastating. As you just described, it shows a degree of involvement on the part of the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself that even the Mueller report did not quite describe. Partly because the report is, it's not a criminal report on an investigation the way the Mueller report is. It's actually a little bit more of, it's a almost more journalistic report.
In a bombshell, the Republican Senate Intelligence Committee released their findings on Trump and Russia. In it, they stated Manafort worked closely with a Russian intelligence officer and that Roger Stone worked with WikiLeaks to get new hacked emails out in the open after the Access Hollywood tape went live, and they complied. This contradicts what Mr. Stone said in my interview, where he said that they had had 3 years to find something on him from the Mueller Commission, and they could not. Of particular interest, he said he was commuted so that he could appeal his conviction, an appeal that he dropped on Monday, just 1 day before this news broke. Later in this broadcast, we will present some conversation about Roger Stone, and tomorrow night we will have part 3 of the Roger Stone interview.
I mean, does this surprise anybody? The word Trump and Russia are just so synonymous with each other. I think what's really disappointing to me, let's fast forward this 4 years from now, where we had the last election in 2016. It's very frustrating to me because the Republicans and the Kremlin and Trump did their best to try to criminalize a woman who was running for president when, the worst crime that Hillary Clinton ever committed was being a woman running for higher office. And reading the Senate intelligence and everything that keeps coming out in regards to this, I think that our buddy Roger Stone is probably regretting not appealing that sentence.
Our buddy Roger Stone. By the way, if you have not seen the interview the last 2 nights, they are on YouTube. You can go see them at the end of the show. Amazing, captivating interview. Al did an amazing job.
Well, and one of the things that I think is shocking is we're getting ready to see, I believe, a house of cards to collapse in on itself, because the Senate Intel Committee kept this report secret all through impeachment. And in fact, much of the world's media is reporting today that the Intel report may be more important and more damaging than the Mueller report. And it was never accessible during the impeachment hearings. Believe me, the little LGBTQ network is going to report much, much more on this topic.
Next, we queer up the USA. Man hurls homophobic slurs, then exposes himself after being asked to wear a mask. Watch this.
You dumb fucking faggot. What's your problem? What's your dumb fucking faggot problem? You don't know the law? This is how stupid you are.
Sir, if you can't use those type of words. Come on, boss.
It'll cost you $75,000. It's a health code violation to deny service based on someone's disability 1 year. So I would love you to do it. It'll cost you $75,000. Or you can look up the law. Do you want to look up the law first? Because this faggot right here, he doesn't know the law. He thinks he's smart. Read Gavin Newsom's law. If you kick me out, it's $75,000. It's your choice. I don't care.
Yeah, but I have to ask you.
You're gonna call the police then. Well, it's $75,000. You're gonna need fine. Call the police. I'm gonna love this. It's a $75,000 fine. Tell Mexican guy here doesn't know because he's paid to do it.
Okay, now we're going.
A man was seen in viral video clips hurling homophobic slurs inside a Marshall's department store after being asked to wear a mask, and at one point appearing to expose himself. The video started circulating on social media after being posted on Twitter and Facebook on Tuesday by Eddie House, a DJ from San Jose, who said the incident had occurred inside a Marshall's department store in Campbell, California. Numerous people on social media identified this man as Tim Gaskin, a former artist and magazine editor who also once hosted a talk show for San Francisco's LGBTQ community called Outspoken. Gaskin then falsely claims that denying him service for not wearing a mask carries a $75,000 fine. You don't know the law. That's how stupid you are, he added.
Well, this is shocking. First, this is the first male Karen that I've seen in pandemic.
They call it an errand.
Right.
It's not me.
and I'm shocked and disappointed he's part of the LGBTQ community, and I'm extremely disappointed that he could maybe have been one of the anchors here at Q News tonight, and I'm really glad he's not.
I think I'm shocked and also disappointed that, I'm sure I'm not the only gay man that made this observation. This happened at a Marshall's, okay? These are holy grounds for us. When we need a TV
oh my God.
on a Friday night and we're
Shut
on a budget, $5.99, just go pick one up. Nevertheless, whether you're LGBT, that doesn't mean that you can't be homophobic, that you can't be racist, that you can't be sexist, that you can't be any of those mentioned things. Ignorance is widespread, and it doesn't discriminate against anyone, and everyone is applicable to be just that.
I don't know that he was for sure homophobic. I mean, he's definitely homophobic. I don't know if he was for sure homosexual or a member of the LGBTQ community, but if he was at one point an ally, he is no longer an ally. And this story is very sad.
Next week, Queer Up Entertainment. There's a hell of a lot of drama in the new teaser for Drag Race Vegas Revue. A big RuPaul fan, as everyone knows, Drag Race Vegas Revue has unleashed another teaser ahead of its premiere on Friday, and the girls are fighting. Shocking? The series will give viewers a come.
From drag to queering up the rest of the world, Queensland becomes the first Australian state to ban conversion therapy. Queensland, the second largest state in Australia, has banned the harmful practice also known as conversion therapy. The news comes just weeks after another
20. Pete Buttigieg, Judy, and Dennis Shepard helped nominate Joe Biden. That's right. Joe Biden officially became the Democratic presidential nominee on Tuesday night with a diverse group of supporters from 57 different states and territories, pledging delegates to him remotely. Those participating in the virtual roll call included some other formal rivals for the nomination, such as Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. Out Maine State Representative Craig Hickman and activists Judy and Dennis Shepard, whose son Matthew was murdered in an anti-gay hate crime in 1998. The Shepards appeared from Wyoming. Quote, Joe understands more than most over our grief over Matt's death. Dennis Shepard said, but we see in Joe so much of what made Matt's life special. His commitment to equality, his passion for social justice, and his boundless compassion for others.
Next week, we're up Vote 2020 and reporting a unique roll call of all states at the virtual DNC convention. Each state had something interesting to offer as they nominated Joe Biden last night to be the Democratic nominee this fall. Alabama paid tribute to the late John Lewis by noting the work of civil rights advocates is not yet done. Fred Gutenberg, whose 14-year-old daughter Jamie was one of 17 people killed in the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018, announced Florida's vote while recalling how Joe Biden called to share in our family's grief after the shooting. Rhode Island, on the other hand, lightened the mood a little bit by going to bat for their state appetizer, calamari. All in all, it was an interesting spectacle that I am unsure we will ever see again in our lifetimes, but it sure did leave a lasting impression.
We continue to queer up Vote 2020. 3 gay rising stars joined the Democratic National Committee keynote, one with his fiancée. Malcolm Kenyatta, a Pennsylvania state representative, appearing remotely, as did numerous others, praised presumptive presidential nominee Joe Biden's early support for marriage equality. Biden publicly embraced equal marriage rights back in May of 2012 when he was vice president, and a few days later, President Obama followed suit. They were running for re-election then, and it didn't hurt their chances at all. Kenyatta's fiancé, Matthew Miller, appeared with him in the segment and also expressed his appreciation for Biden. Mayor Robert Garcia and State Representative Sam Park, both of Georgia, both made appearances as well, highlighting the LGBTQ agenda front and center on a national stage.
Next week, we're up the USA. State attorneys general sue Trump administration over Postal Service changes. The Attorney General of Pennsylvania and Washington are leading a group of 20 states in a pair of lawsuits to stop service changes at the U.S. Postal Services ahead of the election, despite the Postmaster General's pledge to hold off on cost-cutting measures as the states prepared their lawsuits on Tuesday. The lawsuits come after a series of moves by USPS to cut overtime for carriers and remove ballot sorting machines, all as the country gears up for a massive influx of votes cast by mail for the November election. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, a Trump mega donor, has come under recent scrutiny for the operational changes and is the defendant in both of these cases.
Next, let's catch up on all the news surrounding COVID-19 with our segment we call Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. First, we report on coronavirus case numbers based on standard acceptance of population. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases now stand at a staggering 1,572,001, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 397,156. We remind you that America continues to be ground zero of this pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 25.2% of all of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 35,122, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 12,298. The USA is 23.3% of all of the world's deaths.
Next in Quarantine Quickies, pandemic is now driven by 20s, 30s, and 40s group. Many are asymptomatic. So watch this.
The World Health Organization says that the COVID-19 pandemic is now being driven by younger people. Many of them are asymptomatic, posing a danger to vulnerable groups. This month, those infected were largely in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, but as many are unaware that they're even infected, authorities are concerned about the risk of spread to the elderly and sick people.
The World Health Organization said on Tuesday it was concerned about the novel coronavirus spread was being driven by people in their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s, many of which were unaware that they were even infected, posing a danger to vulnerable groups. The World Health Organization officials said this month the proportion of younger people among those infected had risen globally as the months have gone on. Surges were reported in the countries that had appeared to have the virus under control, including even Vietnam, which until recently went 3 months without domestic transmission due to its aggressive mitigation efforts.
I think the thing we need to focus on this story is that 20s, 30s, and 40s are driving this pandemic. We need to realize that, yes, people are extremely healthy and they are not sickly and they are not going to get sick, but they can get positive, they can get infective, and they can share their infection.
To the reporting numbers here of young people are now driving COVID-19 in America, it's because they will not follow mitigation rules. It's that simple. America, I encourage you, if you would like to weigh in this conversation, tune into Gay Town Hall tomorrow night, 8 o'clock live, because this is one of the central topics that is going to be discussed. Why will not the LGBTQ young community in America and our broad young community in America not follow mitigation? Because the results are, while the chances of serious health risk are small, they are infecting their parents and their grandparents.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about to those people in their 20s, their 30s, and their 40s. I say even here in Broward County, the median age of individuals who are contracting coronavirus is just 32 years old. You might be asymptomatic. You might not even know that you have contracted coronavirus. But think about your parents. Think about your grandparents. Think about those who have COVID morbidities and they're most susceptible to contracting coronavirus, but then dying from coronavirus. Not everything is all about you.
Quarantine Quickies. CNN poll says most Americans embarrassed by U.S. response to coronavirus. Watch this.
A CNN poll finds nearly 7 out of 10 Americans feel embarrassed about how the U.S. has responded to the coronavirus outbreak. Many say they are disappointed in the people who refuse to follow the CDC guidelines about wearing masks, social distancing, and spreading the virus at parties. Just over half are angry about how the virus is spreading, and 55% believe the pandemic will get worse. The poll was conducted from August 12th to the 15th and surveyed just over 1,100 people.
Nearly 7 in 10 Americans say the U.S. response to coronavirus outbreak makes them feel embarrassed, according to a new CNN poll. As 62% of the public says President Donald Trump could be doing more to fight the outbreak. As the virus has spread from the nation's cities throughout its countryside, the number who know someone who's been diagnosed with the virus has jumped to dramatically 67%, which is up from 40% in early June. And Americans are angry. About 8 in 10 say that they are at least somewhat angry about the way things are going in the country today, including an astonishing 51% who say they are very angry. CNN has asked this question in polling periodically since 2008, and the previous high for the share who said they were very angry was 35%, reached in 2008 and 2016.
The one glimmer of hope in this study is how it's going to affect the election on November 3rd. My gut says this is the issue. If 51% of Americans are extremely or very angry on the COVID response, 70% are in the very positive, angry status, it probably has a great propensity of defeating President Donald Trump because he's going to get the blame.
Yeah, I too am one of those Americans who are very angry, and I think one of the best cures that we have for this virus, and this virus that is the Trump administration, is to vote.
The angrier you are, the more I hope you are fueled to go let your voice be heard in the election.
You know, it's funny. Just one last thought. Michelle Obama's Monday night speech is ringing in my head when she said the Donald Trump virus on American democracy, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So Happening Out Television Network is broadcasting on our brand new set in partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Florida. We joke it's also the gayest place on planet Earth. Our support of their Sunday celebration is the largest LGBTQ religious broadcast in the world, every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We encourage you to tune in. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. So watch this.
Steve, Aaron Phoenix is calling me. I cannot.
Dr. Ann Atwell, Minister of Connections. Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this new set possible. We end tonight's broadcast with what we call the Big Finish. These are short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Queer News Tonight's The Big Finish. Are you pronouncing Kamala Harris' name wrong?
This is like the question on every white American's conscience right now. I served on her National Finance Committee, and I'm always saying it wrong too. I'm saying Kamala. It's Kamala, like a comma, and then like do, re, mi, fa, la, whatever. Kamala.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, Kamala. I trusted Aaron's lead. He worked for Kamala.
Oh, he led you astray.
No. I'm not the only one doing this.
He was like, I'm endorsing Kamala. Kamala. That's what it was. You were saying Kamala.
I'm blonde. I keep away with it.
But yeah, now I'm corrected. I do believe that we must say names correctly, and Kamala.
As the only one at the table that always pronounced it correctly. As someone who frequently is made fun of for pronouncing names wrong, and I do it a lot, by the way, I am just going to keep my mouth shut on this one. Oh, wait, I didn't. However, I got it right early in the presidential election cycle. I have gotten it right. And by the way, She pronounces her name, Vice President Harris.
Of course.
Woo!
The big finish. A gay waiter gets a tip from Trump supporters with a disgusting slur written on it.
Oh, from election sites to restaurants, this is Trump's America. And to that person, I say, you know, if you're going out to eat and you don't want to deal with homophobic people, just go to McDonald's. Fast food. I totally endorse it.
Fast food. Now, if you did not get to read it on that dollar bill, it said, "Get out of America, fag." I have been a waiter for most of my life, from being a singing waiter at the Macaroni Grill in the 90s to working at Chili's to the Cheesecake Factory, and yes, even Lips. You would be shocked at the stuff people leave as tips. I will just say, on a positive note, I'm glad they actually tipped him instead of writing this statement on a piece of paper, or even worse, a Bible tract saying he was going to hell.
Here's one of the things that you're not going to learn about this incident at MSNBC or CNN. That guy tipped that waiter and then immediately went to a poll in Disney, Florida,
right,
and called the poll worker a faggot.
Aaron.
Here's a tip for the people who did leave this. Jesus would have been would have a much bigger problem with you mistreating your neighbor than he would any gay man.
Love.
Closed-minded bigots, racists, xenophobes have said far worse about some of the greatest heroes in history. So remember, Waiter Joe, you're in pretty good company. I guess the poll worker is also. The big finish. Anderson Cooper delivers a blistering attack on MyPillow Guy's snake oil COVID-19 drug.
And cue the song, for the best sleep in the whole wide world, vote for Joe Biden on November 3rd.
That was a new parody. I love it. You know, I agree with Anderson Cooper. This sounds like a charlatan trying to make a quick buck off a pandemic and a crisis and everyone's panic and fears. Stay in your lane. Sell pillows, not medicine.
Wait, Misty, were you talking about the president?
No, I'm talking about the pillow man.
No, I mean, it sounded like the president.
Either way, stay in your lane.
I suppose he should have stuck to selling pillows, because I watched this interview and Cooper hammered him. Mr. Mustache is from Minnesota. And I have to be honest with you, there have been a lot of things come out of Minnesota this year that I don't like. Ignorance is at the top of the list. The big finish. Donald Trump donated thousands of dollars to Kamala Harris campaigns. She gave the money to charity.
You know, there's a song, "This Girl Is on Fire." She's on fire. I'm praying. I just love her. Please elect her as the next Vice President of the United States, please.
When I first heard this story, I was like, what? I thought he donated money to her this year. But it was a couple of years ago before he got into politics himself. And you know what? I honestly forgot he was a Democrat before he ran for president.
I've got absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Because he's an idiot. He gives to everyone and then claims, I'm a Republican. In the big finish, Trump pardons lesbian suffragette. I didn't know that until this story came out, of Susan B. Anthony. By the way, she didn't want to be pardoned.
You know, the interesting thing about this story, if we actually know Susan B. Anthony, her history and whatnot, she was not very inclusive and she was racist. So it doesn't surprise me, pardoning other racists from the Trump administration, that he would choose this one too.
Right.
By the way, isn't she dead? How do you pardon someone that is dead?
That's the joke. You can. It is possible to do. Trump did all kinds of crazy things. In fact, he never really did know how to stop when a woman said no. So I'm not surprised. If Susan B. Anthony were alive today, Michael Cohen would be threatening her with a lawsuit, and Trump would pay her off in a non-disclosure agreement and 100,000 Susan B. Anthony silver dollars. The big finish. America redefines, this is my favorite story of the week, America redefines what a foot is, meaning how many inches.
God, what a horrible week this is, you know, attacking the USPS, vote by mail, all of this now. America's redefining what a foot is. It's already bad enough that when you put the toast in the oven at Subway, it shrinks the bread. It's not a real foot, people. What, is it going to get smaller? What am I supposed to do?
That's right.
So I guarantee you, this was led by men. Why are women and gay men? Why are women and gay men so bad at math? Because men have been saying this is 5 inches, or I'm sorry, they've been saying this is 8 inches for years. It's really 5.
Every gay man knows the value of inches.
AOL inches.
We speak the language. I have so many friends where a measuring tape is standard equipment. I could look to my right. But this new definition of a foot in Grindr just means that 12 inches was always really 9. 8 inches was always really 5.5. Good for you, boys. Good for you. My friends, however, measure in centimeters. And 26 centimeters, just saying, is just about right. Look it up. To my metrically challenged LGBTQ community. My evening is now over. We finished Queer News Tonight, and we want to thank you for joining us. And on behalf of my anchor partners, Aaron Darr and Misty Eyes, we thank you very much, and we'll be here every night at 7 p.m., including tomorrow night.
Tune in tonight at 8 o'clock.
Good night, America.